Our families are here to stand in solidarity with yet another family who have had their loved ones stolen unjustly by this corrupted system here in the state of Minnesota. Justin Teigen was brutally beat to death by the St. Paul police here in the state of Minnesota. August 19, 2009, and thrown inside of a trash dumpster.
She has been telling her story for years, whether to Minnesota lawmakers or to local and national media cameras.
You have to remember this was back in 2009 before there was a movement and a lot of these murders were swept under the rug.
Seemingly unchecked at every setting.
They caught him, they beat him to death, they threw him in the garbage, they framed the whole story.
But an Alpha News investigation reveals the whole story Toshira Garaway has been telling is not true, as her fiancé Justin Teigen's name has made it as far as the state capitol this session, a potential law that would change the statute of limitations against Minnesota police officers, all based on a lie, according to the evidence and those who know the case well.
And then there's conversations about this person's truth and that person's truth, but the truth is really one thing. Quite frankly, it saddens me that people in these high-ranking positions won't come out and call it out for what it is.
So what really happened to Justin Teigen 12 years ago? After sorting through surveillance video documents and 5 different agencies' findings, officials have concluded there is nothing to support the serious allegations Garaway has been leveling against the St. Paul Police Department.
Mr. Teigen's death was unfortunate and sad, but it was not due to police misconduct.
The case begins just a few minutes before 3 a.m. on August 19th of 2009. An officer stops a Dodge Charger driving through what was once a parking lot near Perkins on University Avenue at a high rate of speed. The officer walked up to the vehicle to see 3 males in the car. The driver would later be identified as Justin Teigen. According to the report, Teigen refused to show his hands. Instead, he steps on the gas as the officer jumps back, afraid he'd be run over. The car didn't get far. The surveillance video shows the moment Teigen crashed into a cement pillar at a strip mall blocks away. 9 seconds later, you see a figure get out. Another camera captures that figure, Teigen, fleeing the scene. Seconds later, the same officer who first tried to pull him over arrives. He stays with the 2 passengers who were left behind, bleeding. The officer also finds a handgun on the floor of the driver's seat and a bag of cocaine in the car. A few minutes later, more cops pull up, including a canine officer to look for Teigen. A total of 21 police officers are a part of the search that night as a thunderstorm moves in. The lightning and rain are captured on camera. Video surveillance from a nearby Walmart will later help to solve the mystery of Teigen's whereabouts. That's him in the upper corner of the screen, climbing into a recycling bin. Officers will walk past it a few different times. Still, nothing happens to the bin as the video runs continuously. An hour and 20 minutes after the crash and after police clear the scene, a trash truck pulls up, unknowingly picking up the bin where Teigen is hiding. It's 9 o'clock the next morning when workers at a recycling plant in Inver Grove Heights find Teigen's lifeless body. According to the medical examiner, who also reviewed reports and video, Teigen died of mechanical asphyxia, and they found injuries consistent with a motor vehicle crash. On 2 different occasions, the Ramsey County Attorney's Office also weighed in. The director of the criminal division wrote as recently as 2019 that I did not see then and I do not see now any basis to believe a homicide occurred or should be prosecuted, and that the investigation is, quote, considered completed and closed. St. Paul Police Chief Todd Axtell agreed to talk to us by phone.
I certainly understand the emotions and the pain felt by those who knew and loved Mr. Teigen. The fact is that if different choices had been made on that day in 2009, if Mr. Teigen hadn't fled from police officers, if he hadn't crashed, left his friends injured in a car, and then ran away from the scene, if he hadn't hit a dumpster for hours, ultimately being crushed inside a garbage truck, he may still be alive today.
And what do you make of that, the fact that they haven't stopped her at this point? I mean, there is a Minnesota law being proposed in his name.
It's a slap in the face to law enforcement.
Republican Representative Brian Johnson has been listening in as Garaway advocates for the Justin Teigen law at the state capitol.
We have to be transparent. We have to be honest.
The bill would eliminate the statute of limitations for filing civil lawsuits in the case of wrongful death of a person by police.
When we keep pushing misinformation down here at the legislature, we're not doing the citizens of Minnesota the proper way as well. We lose our credibility. It's so important to make sure that the information and the testifiers that you're using to promote something in a bill is true and accurate, and otherwise it is an injustice to the citizens of Minnesota. Unfortunately, it's up to the chair and the committee legislative administrator to make sure that the information that they bring, of the testifiers they bring forward, are correct.
Alpha News reached out to the people in those positions to ask what happened here. DFL Representative Carlos Mariani and Criminal Justice Reform Committee Administrator Jamal Lundy did not reply in time for our deadline.
Commissioner of Public Safety John Mark Harrington was the chief of police at the time in St. Paul. He knows that what she's saying is untrue, and I know that she's delivered testimony in committees that he's been involved with. He's been present while she said things that aren't true.
St. Paul Police Federation President Mark Ross points out that in addition to Commissioner Harrington, Paul Schnell, who served as the St. Paul Police Department's PIO back then, now serves as Minnesota's Commissioner of Corrections. Videos from the legislature show they are both present as Garaway's story is recited. Again, Alpha News reached out to ask why they haven't corrected the record. Both declined to comment for this story.
What it does is it diminishes the relationship that we're trying to build with the community, and it breeds distrust in the police, and it works against everything that we're trying to accomplish right now.
As for Tashira Garaway, when she called us back, we tried to explain the lack of evidence to support her claims. But there's no mention of, any dog bites or...
Of course they're not going to mention that, Liz.
We offered to review the case files with her, but she'd only agree if the medical examiner and 5 different officers were present. Some have since retired from the force.
And I understand you're just doing your job, but I also understand what I had to live through and the harassment and the torment and the pain that they've caused my son and that they've caused me. And they go on with their lives and they go home with their families. And it's just not right.
Garaway formed a nonprofit called Families Supporting Families Against Police Violence in 2020. After failing to file an annual renewal as required by state law, the group was dissolved by the Secretary of State's office in January.